Honestly, you know what I think about? I actually think about all the Bitcoin I sold.
Oof. Yeah,
I had Bitcoin. I had a bunch of Bitcoin in my funds when I managed outside capital. That's a $3 or $4 billion mistake, and growing now, because my partners at the time capitulated and I wanted to be a good team member, and we distributed and it was profitable, but obviously I shouldn't have sold it. Would have made them a lot more money.
Billionaire investor and host of the All In podcast, Chamath, believes Bitcoin is poised for something extraordinary, with prices hitting an all-time high of $99,000 before retracing to $93,000. He sees this as more than just a market rally. It's the beginning of a larger shift. Chamath breaks down Trump's unexpected focus on crypto, including plans to fire SEC Chair Gary Gensler, prevent the government from selling its Bitcoin holdings, and create a pro-crypto presidential advisory council. These bold moves, combined with Bitcoin's rising popularity and decreasing supply on exchanges, signal what Chamath calls a massive opportunity for investors. Could this be the start of an even bigger bull market? Let's get into the latest insights from the All In podcast and explore what's next for Bitcoin and the crypto world.
In July, Trump headlined a Bitcoin conference. He laid out his plans. Number one, he was going to fire SEC Chairman Gary Gensler. Here's the clip.
On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman.
There it is. Whoa.
I didn't know he was that unpopular.
Fire him. Gonna fire him. Too bad for Gary.
I didn't know he was that unpopular. Let me say it again. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler. Whoa.
Technically, president can't fire the SEC chair, but he can appoint a new one when Gary's term ends in 2026. Or Gary could resign when Trump takes office. That happens sometimes. And folks are speculating Gensler has already made that decision to step down. Trump also said the federal government will never ever sell its Bitcoin holdings, which they own through criminal assets, as you know. And number three, he said he would create a Bitcoin and crypto presidential advisory council, where Trump said, quote, "The rules will be written by people who love your industry, not hate your industry." And he also advocated that all future Bitcoins would be minted in America.
What did I say at the beginning of the year was going to be the biggest risk asset winning trade? Yeah, it's great. Bitcoin's great.
Oh my Lord, I haven't seen you this happy in a while. What made you more happy? Getting to Milan and spending time with your white truffle dealer, or watching Bitcoin break 90K? Which one was more exciting for you personally?
Honestly, you know what I think about? I actually think about all the Bitcoin I sold.
Oof. Yeah,
I had Bitcoin. I had a bunch of Bitcoin in my funds when I managed outside capital. That's a $3 or $4 billion mistake, and growing now, because my partners at the time capitulated and I wanted to be a good team member, and we distributed and it was profitable, but obviously I shouldn't have sold it. Would have made them a lot more money. And then I think about, I bought some land.
I remember
Lake Tahoe.
that. Yeah.
It was in the Wall Street Journal. I'm sure you can find it, but
yeah,
how much is that worth now? Probably a couple $100 million, maybe more.
Rough trade. But you do have Bitcoin holdings.
Chamath,
So
can I
I
ask you a question? Why do you say sold Bitcoin as opposed to converted Bitcoin into dollars? Like, when you think about Bitcoin, just as a participant, do you think about Bitcoin as a dollar-denominated asset that you go and buy Bitcoin and then you're eventually going to sell it, turn it back into dollars and use the dollars? Or are you what do you think about the purest kind of idea that Bitcoin should be the de facto currency and store of value in the future, and the dollar doesn't matter, and we shouldn't necessarily be talking about the value of Bitcoin in dollar-denominated terms as something I'm going to eventually turn it back into?
It hasn't happened yet. And so until it happens, I think you have to view it as a very good gold proxy. But it's a largely dollar-denominated asset.
Now, why do you see it going the other way? Like, so a lot of folks thought that as a safe haven, it should do well when there's a negative economic outlook, but it has traded the last couple of years kind of
No,
the
it's
opposite.
totally correlated. No, it's a totally correlated asset. I mean,
Yeah.
there will be a point, and it's probably in our lifetime, where it is an independent asset and a non-speculative store of value. There will be that day, but that day is not now. And I think it's very important to see the conditions on the field as they are versus what you wish it to be. And the reason is that it allows you to risk manage more appropriately. Because if you don't see it, then when something happens to the dollar complex, good or bad, or when something happens to rates, good or bad, or when something stimulative happens, good or bad, you're not going to react properly if you're in the business of managing it as a risk asset. So if you're in the set it and forget it bucket, and there are some people, I think it's great. None of these conversations matter. But like most people, you're probably going to be motivated to do something. And I think if you're motivated to do something, or you have FOMO that stimulates you to do something, whatever the psychology is that leads you to action, it's probably important to just view things as they really are versus how you wish them to be. And so I think the purists may eventually be right. I think they will be right at some point in my lifetime, but they're not right now. And that's why these things are correlated. And
If
you
the
should
market
act
goes up.
appropriately. The other thing I'll say just broadly about the market is I think that there's a tremendous amount of optimism about the economy. I think that's why you see risk spreads get crushed.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I think that as long as we see the kind of prognostications that the Trump administration is putting out, I think people are going to be mostly bullish. I think the way that this trade turns around is when something actually breaks in terms of the inflation picture or in terms of the deficit picture. And if those things look like going into 2025, that President Trump's actions are not going to be able to course correct it, then I think you're going to see people go massively risk off, which I think will not be great for markets, obviously. But right now, we're not in that point.
And you don't think the 10-year reflects that already at 4.5%? I mean, that's showing some degree of inflation and concern about the deficit, right? It's
I think the 10-year could be at 7%.
Yeah.
What does 4.5% mean? I mean, if you're going to run 8% of GDP level deficits for the next 4 or 5 or 6 years, you're going to have the 10-year at 7 to 8%. That's just mathematical.
Right.
Sachs, your thoughts on crypto before we get into IPOs and M&A, if any?
Yeah, just on crypto, the House Republicans already passed a framework for crypto regulation earlier this year. It actually got 71 Democrats to join it. It was called the Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act, or FIT 21. And it would classify digital assets like crypto as commodities regulated by the CFTC if the blockchain they run on is quote, functional and decentralized. That's the key requirement. If their blockchain is functional but not decentralized, then they would be considered securities and fall under the purview of the SEC. I think the crypto industry basically wants a really clear line for knowing when they're a commodity, and they want commodities to be governed like all other commodities by the CFTC. So that's what the Republican bill would do. I think with the Republicans now winning the Senate, the prospects for that bill to get enacted are now greatly improved, especially because Sherrod Brown, who used to run the banking committee, just lost to Bernie Moreno. This was a seat in Ohio. Elizabeth Warren is still going to object to this legislation, but she's just going to have way less influence. And like you said, it's not clear that Gary Gensler is going to be sticking around very long at the SEC. So look, the bottom line here is that I think that we are close to having clear rules of the road codified by Congress, which is what the crypto industry has been asking for. And the days of Gensler terrorizing crypto companies by issuing Wells notices without clarifying what the rules are that he's prosecuting, those days are about to be over. So I think this is why the crypto markets are rallying.
And so to your point, if it's centralized or partially centralized, you're going to be a security. If you're decentralized, anybody can join the network. No one person controls the network. And I guess most people would consider that Bitcoin versus, say, Ripple, which is partially decentralized, but largely centralized. And that's going to be, I guess, the new rules of the road. In addition to that, there are new rules that are being enforced that hopefully Trump
assuming
supports.
FIT 21 passes, right? This bill is called FIT 21. But I think much, much higher likelihood that it or something like it now can get through the Congress.
It makes sense.
Chamath's analysis points to a pivotal moment for Bitcoin and the crypto market. With Bitcoin soaring near $99,000 and Trump's bold pro-crypto stance reshaping the conversation, the stage is set for a potentially transformative period. Chamath emphasized that clearer regulations, shifting political priorities, and the increasing institutional embrace of Bitcoin could drive even greater momentum. Whether you're watching for new all-time highs or preparing for the potential changes in the crypto landscape, one thing is certain. This is a market moment that can't be ignored. What do you think about Chamath's predictions and the state of Bitcoin today? Let us know in the comments and be sure to subscribe for more updates on the latest in crypto. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this,